All right, guys, let's get started. Tonight's class is going to be a start of a 10 class series that I'm going to do, talking about intention is invitation, and of course, advanced and intermediate, the further along we go. This series was created for one specific reason. It's to bring clarity, responsibility, and understanding to the world of the paranormal investigation as well as spiritual exploration. Right now, a lot of people use paranormal tools, spirit boxes, REM pods, Ouija boards, cat balls, motion sensors, like you name it. But we can also categorize pendulums, tarot and oracle cards, anything like that we might use in a daily use. But very few people actually understand how or why these tools work. Instead, the tools get treated like toys. Good example, Hasbro has commercialized the Ouija board as a toy since the early, 1900s? It's not a toy, it's a very powerful tool if used correctly, right? But the invitation is the power that allows all these tools to work. So every time somebody asks, is there anybody here with us? Can you move this object? Can you touch that device? Something energetically important happens in that moment. A door is opened. Like you have literally opened a door by asking that question. So therefore, a permission is given. Okay? An invitation is then created. So tonight we're going to break down exactly how that works. Because if you're going to explore the unseen world, you should understand the mechanics behind what you're doing, right? So first we're going to talk about everything is energy. Scientifically, spiritually, any way you want to look at it, they have proven everything is energy. But before we can talk about the spirits, the paranormal tools and things like that, we have to learn about the energy. So everything that exists in this universe operates through energy. Your body is energy. Our brain is energy. Our thoughts are energy. Even the emotions that we create have a measurable energetic change in our body. So science has already confirmed that the brain operates through electrical signals. Neurons fire and communication through electrical impulses. Your heart also generates a powerful electromagnetic field on its own. In fact, the electromagnetic field produced by our heart can extend several feet outside of the body. So that means something very interesting, right? Your thoughts and emotions are not contained only inside your body. They influence the energetic environment around you. So when someone enters a location and begins focusing, keyword there, focusing on the possibility of paranormal activity, that awareness itself already changes the energetic environment. So that initial intent to focus on, I wonder if this place is haunted, is that first energetic shift and invitation to open that door. This is the first foundational principle of pretty much energetics. Consciousness directs energy. Where our attention goes, energy flows. I know we've all heard that phrase before, but it's true. Where our attention goes, energy flows. So if our intention walking into a location is, I've heard this place has great activity, I hope we have activity, well, that in itself is an invitation. You being there with the curiosity, the thought of something might happen, you are now energetically changing the environment of that location while you're there. So, intention with the direction of energy. So, let's talk about the intentions. The intentions is often misunderstood. Many people think that intention means something like, I have good intentions. But energetically, intention simply means direction of focus and energy. When you ask a question, you are directing your awareness towards a possibility. Otherwise, you wouldn't ask the question, right? When investigators say, is someone here? They are doing more than speaking just words. They are directing focus towards interaction. The moment that question is asked, the environment shifts. Not because the words themselves are magical, like abracadabra, but because consciousness has now opened the possibility for response. So when we also talk about you have to open yourself up, this, you yourself could be an example in this as well. This is why intention matters so much in both spiritual practices and paranormal investigations. Because intention sets the energetic tone for what happens next. Just like if you're, lighting a candle for somebody or whatever, or doing a working or whatever it may be, it's all part of it, right? That intention is the possibility of what could happen next. And of course, all of that leads into the core principle of this class. Intention creates the invitation. Okay? So just because people think it's setting a piece of equipment out and asking someone to touch it, and it gets interactions that they're having proof or evidence that that is paranormal. Well, no, it's not really proof, but that intention of taking that equipment in the first place for the possibility that something might be there to play with it if you ask it, in the right way or whatever. That intention right there is automatically the invitation. So why do these tools work? These tools work because because tools themselves often confuse people. People believe that the tool is what creates the communication. It is not. It is just a tool. It is a bridge. They're actually something simpler. They are interaction points. So they give the energy something physical to influence, right? So therefore we are directing that energy to that particular tool. Think of them as like interfaces. A REM pod creates that electromagnetic field around the antenna. If something disturbs that field, then the device alerts us. And then we know how close it is depending on the colors on the, on the REM pod itself. A spirit box. So a spirit box rapidly sweeps radio frequencies. What are frequencies? Energy waves, right? They're just waves of energy. So again, you're shifting the energy. Even though it's radio frequency, the frequency is still energy. And now we're using that to try to open up that door as well. The cat ball, it contains a motion sensor that lights up with movement is detected. A pendulum responds to motion or subtle energy influence. So the tool isn't the communicating, the tool itself isn't what's communicating. The tool is simply providing a visible response when something interacts with it, right? So it becomes the bridge between the unseen and the physical world. But again, tools don't initiate the communication. Communication begins when someone asks for interaction, which bridges us back into that invitation. Okay, so now we're going to go over the invitation mechanics. So invitation simply means permission for interaction. When investigators enter a location and ask, is there anyone here with us? They have opened a communication channel. When they say, can you touch this device? They're directing the interaction towards a specific object. Even curiosity can act as invitation. If someone strongly focuses on the idea of encountering something paranormal, that focused awareness alone becomes a kind of energetic signal. Okay, so you going to a public investigation and you're really excited because you really think something's going to happen, or you really want something to happen, so you have an experience that you can remember with this investigation, you are already opening that door. You are already sending that signal out to whatever is in that location, whether you've been there or not before or not. You know, like if you've been there or not, you're sending that signal out already, and whatever is there can pick up that signal, and therefore you have your invitation at that point. Now, this doesn't mean that every invitation results in activity. And this does not mean that every invitation will have activity at the location. Once that door is open with invitation, whether they take it then or not, without correct closure, they can still follow you home months, years later, and still interact with you and, you know, take their one up on, hey, you gave me permission. Well, I'm here now. You know, deal with it. So just remember that once an invitation is set out, just because you don't get activity then, if it's not correctly closed, that invitation stays open. Let's see. This is also why careless investigation techniques can cause a lot of problems, because some investigators unknowingly invite interaction without understanding what they're doing. Awareness changes that. So once you become aware of what invitations you're putting out there and what boundaries you are holding on to, because I know there's been times I've set a boundary, but then not paying attention to everything that had went on already in the live and the little things leading up to it in the moment. I've invited things past my boundary that I set before I ever got there, and not realize that until a later point, you know, like while I'm reviewing my footage or whatever. But I mean, I've I'm not knowing, like not being aware that I literally just invited something in that I set a boundary on before I ever got there, with the intention of what I wanted to draw to me in this investigation and communicate with and things like that. So this next section, we're going to kind of go over like paranormal tools versus spiritual tools. So there's something that surprises many people. Spiritual tools operate through the exact same energetic mechanism as paranormal tools. So tarot cards, oracle cards, pendulums, automatic writing, meditation, communication, all of these practices begin with a question or an intention. So all of those things, you are doing the exact same thing as a paranormal investigator. We're just doing it on two different fields. We're inviting outside things, as y'all are inviting. Most of that is inside things. Whether that be your higher power, whether that be, calling in the elements, calling in the directions, like whatever you're doing, it's pretty much the same practice daily as it is the same thing as what paranormal investigators take into an investigation. So when someone shuffles tarot cards while focusing on a question, someone holds a pendulum and asks for a yes or no answer, someone meditates and asks for guidance, different tools, all same energetic process. Focused consciousness is opening a channel for response, which means the spiritual world and the paranormal investigations are not separate systems. They are simply different ways of interacting with the unseen. Now we need to address something that causes confusion, and this is protection versus invitation. Protection and invitation are not the same thing. Someone might say a prayer before an investigation. They might say they are protected. But if they walk into a building and ask, is anyone here who wants to talk to us? That is still an invitation. Protection may establish boundaries, but the invitation still opens a line of communication. So just because we set the intention, which initially turns to the invitation, that does not mean that we are protected. That does not mean that our intent is protection. We can set boundaries with it. However, we cannot assume that intention is protection. Think of it like opening a radio frequency. Once the channel is open, something could potentially respond. This is why clarity of intention matters so much. Responsible investigators understand the difference between observation and invitation. And then the last one is going to be the truth many investigators eventually realize. The strongest influence in the investigation is not the equipment. It's never the equipment. It's the person. Your emotional states affect the environment. Fear can amplify the experiences. Calm awareness can stabilize them. Investigators who are grounded and intentional tend to have the clearest experiences, not because they have better tools, but because their energy is more focused. You are the signal in the investigation. You are the most powerful tool that you have. The tools simply help reveal the response. So the most important lesson for tonight is this. Paranormal tools are not magical. They're simply interfaces for interaction. What actually begins the process is much simpler, which is intention. Every investigation, every pendulum session, every tarot reading, every spirit box question begins with the same energetic principle. Intention creates invitation. An invitation creates the potential for interaction.